Hollow Knight Silksong is a game full of mysteries and unanswered questions. Today I want to answer one of the biggest questions of all, one that's been plaguing the Hollow Knight community even before Silksong released, one that's been tormenting my mind ever since laying eyes on this game. Why is Hornet red?
What is wrong with you? Why are you blue?
Jokes aside, I am curious if there's any meaning to be found behind Hornet's main color. Character design shouldn't be taken lightly after all. There should be some thought put into it, especially for a main supporting character who later becomes her own protagonist. So, today I want to delve into the psychology of red. I want to discover the meaning behind Hornet's cloak, if there even is any meaning to be found. I want to analyze any possible significance regarding her color scheme. So, without further ado, let's get into it. There's a lot to be said about the color red. It's arguably the most versatile of all the colors in terms of its symbolism, meaning that it has the largest range of emotion associated with it. The obvious emotions, and probably the most significant, are that of anger and love, two emotions that are quite opposite of one another. But even if anger and love are such opposites, they are quite similar in terms of their power. And that's the significance of red. It's a color associated with powerful emotions. A color associated with passion. To put it simply, red is the color of dominance. We see this in nature with how red, due to having such a long wavelength, is the most noticeable color in sunsets, or how leaves in autumn often change into some shade of red. Even in humans, red is very dominant. Studies have shown that wearing red in sports, even esports, increases one's performance. Studies have also shown that those judging in sports or competitions tend to have a bias towards those wearing red. On the opposite end, studies have also shown that humans prefer others wearing red in romantic settings. A lot of this association could be explained by how red is the color of blood. When someone is angry, blood flow increases, which gives those of pale skin a slight red hue. The same happens when someone is embarrassed and when someone is feeling, romantic. Along with this topic of blood, it could very well explain why red is also associated with violence. Even throughout history, war is often depicted with red because, bloodshed. But more than that, red itself is a very vibrant, harsh color, which is why it evokes that feeling of danger and violence. I mean, there's a reason why warning signs often use red. It's eye-catching, but it also has the association of danger. If something is red, we know to stay far away. On the flip side, we can't forget the love side of red, which means this color can also be inviting. There's a reason why the most romantic flower is a rose, specifically a red rose. On the other flip side, the color red means power. This is neither repellent or inviting. Just think of the red carpet, or how red is usually used as a regal or royal color. Considering that, red could be boiled down to the color of status. With all this being said, my conclusion on the psychology of red is this. The color red is one of powerful contradictions. Being used to convey anger, love, violence, power, it has such a wide range that can't be summarized by only one. It can, however, be described on all facets as dominant. Now that we've briefly talked about the meaning behind the color red, I want to touch on the other characters who have red in their designs. We'll start off with the legend himself, Grimm. I would argue that, besides Hornet, the Grimm Troupe is what most Hollow Knight players would think of when it comes to the color red. I mean, all of the promotions surrounding this DLC was all red, and the Troupe and the Heart and Grimm himself are all red. I think the reasoning as to why the Grimm Troupe is mostly red is rather obvious. The ritual of the Troupe is built upon a heart and flames after all, both of which are red even outside the world of Hollow Knight. In a design sense, the Grimm Troupe being so red could be to increase how alien they feel to the world of Hollow Knight, which, in the first game, is typically made up of blues, greys, and greens. They are an intrusive force coming to feast upon the lingering nightmares from the fallen kingdom of Hallownest. They're not exactly welcome. In a metaphorical or symbolic sense, the Grimm Troupe is red because of passion. Grimm's dialogue often reflects such things, constantly mentioning the heat of the nightmare flame and the excitement of the ritual. My favorite dialogue of his is after you defeat him and he says, Look here, how our child has grown, nourished and strengthened by the heat of our passionate dance. Like, okay, slow down, big guy. A passionate theater-esque character. Where else have I heard such a thing? The other character who truly embodies the color red is, of course, Trobbio. His whole deal is about passion too. Passion to reignite the flame of Pharloom. He also seeks fame and attention, which, in my opinion, greatly speaks to the dominance and vibrancy of the color red. And how could I forget the diva herself, Karmelita? Another predominantly red character, especially considering how all of the Skarr, her species, are red as well. For Karmelita, her red is purely of status, power, and dominance. The Skarr are a species greatly centered around strength, with Karmelita being the most powerful out of all of them, which is one of, if not the reason why she's their leader. In a similar vein, Grimm, or Dung Defender, is another red character who is all about passion and strength, albeit in a more friendly manner. Same goes for Crust King, Khan, and the whole Coral Kingdom. All of that, to me, embodies militaristic strength. Other red characters include the Seamstress, Willow, and the Great Conchflies, but Seamstress doesn't really embody any of the traits I've listed about the color red, and Willow is more of a background character than anything. The Great Conchflies are mates, which lends to that romantic symbolism of red, but I don't think it goes any deeper than that. There may be other characters who are red or have red in their designs that I'm not thinking of. If that's the case, feel free to remind me of them in the comments. For now, let's move on to our favorite red maiden, Hornet. Despite what I initially thought, there's actually a number of times in Silksong where red is mentioned in relation to Hornet. Characters often include the color in their nicknames or titles for her, such as Sherma calling her Red Maiden and Second Sentinel calling her Hunter in Red. There are also a couple of other mentions in various dialogue, like how loyal Mergwyn asks, "Why are you adorned in such an awful, livid red?" The other main instance of red comes from, of course, the Red Memory. Everything surrounding this sequence is bathed in this color, starting with that rather violent cutscene of the spell being activated. The most noteworthy moment here is when we see the Weavers, and later on, Hera herself. Both the Weavers and Hera are adorned in red fabric, and it's in that first scene where we see Hornet making her iconic cloak. The rest of the memory sequence goes on to show Hive Queen Vespa, and at the end, the White Lady. All of these sequences have red within them, mostly reduced to a faint hue in the background. The emphasis on this color means that the red of Hornet's cloak isn't just a stylistic choice. It means something. It embodies her. So then, what does it mean? Why choose the color red? Well, honestly, what other color could fit her so well? As we've talked about, red is a very dominant color, and Hornet herself is very, well, assertive. But more than that, red is the color of contradictions. It's anger and love. It's violence and status. In my video on the theme of identity in Silksong, I briefly talk about how Hornet is given multiple paths to take. She is both a weaver and a worm. She is both a hunter and a guardian. Hornet herself is a being of contradictions, and this battle of identities is central to her character arc. By the end of Act 3, she's grown into an identity of her own making, surpassing the pressures and expectations placed upon her by the weavers from her childhood and the desires of Grandmother Silk. She's grown into her own self. She is not Weaver Queen or a pale being, she is Hornet, the Red Maiden. When I think about red, I can't help but think of how easily that color stains. If you put a red shirt with a white one in the wash, chances are that red will bleed into the white. Tomatoes are notorious for causing similar stains, and of course there's blood, which leaves just as much of a mark. The pilgrims of the Citadel all wear white. White and gold are the colors that represent this false religion. Loyal Mergwyn's snide comment about Hornet's clothing comes from his misconception that Hornet is a servant of the Citadel and thus should not be wearing such an awful, livid color. But isn't that exactly what Hornet is to the Citadel? She arrives in Pharloom and, quite literally, shakes things up. She is the stain that invades the Citadel and changes it, permanently. The White Lady, the Pale King, and Grandmother Silk are also predominantly white. Hornet herself has white in her design, representing her pale being inheritance. But does she follow in the footsteps of her pale kin? No. While that will forever be a part of her, she doesn't let it define her. Red, at its core, is stubborn. stubborn, unyielding, and powerful. It is also vibrant, lively, and made of contradictions. Honestly, I can't think of a better way to describe Hornet. That's about all I have for this video, but I'm certain there's more that could be said on this topic. In all honesty, going into this, I didn't expect all that much. Hornet being red just fits, so I didn't think there would be that much meaning lurking behind it. But, well, I hope you learned something interesting from my ramblings. Let me know your own interpretations or insights in the comments. Also, if you want to see the studies I mentioned about the psychology of red, I have them linked in the description. With that, I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye!